Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dropout Drop-In. Here's what you can expect in this week's conversation. We had an entire episode planned for you and we scrapped it earlier today when Dropout announced Dimension 20 live at Madison Square Garden. This entire conversation is talking about the event and how excited we are, how exciting it is for Dimension 20. We really got to dig into some of the expertise that Rowan and I have in this space. Rowan expands on the article that she published earlier today to rascal.news about the venue and ethical considerations around booking venues like this. And I talk a little bit about the work I've done covering Ticketmaster for the past 2 years and how their monopoly in the space has really affected productions like this. So you get everything from wild speculation to really deep conversations around events like this. I really love how this conversation turned out and I hope you do too. Will we see you in New York City for this event? Let us know in the comments and enjoy this week's episode. Welcome to the Dropout Drop-In, a very special wipe the slate clean and see where we go episode, because this morning the internet broke with the news that Dimension 20 is taking over Madison Square Garden next January. What the hell? This is crazy.
Absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. Like,
all three of our faces just went in such different directions. I feel like we just represented everyone reacting to this news this morning. Like, just, what? Huh? Jordon, where were you when you got the notification? Because I think you responded to me in about a minute 30 seconds, so you can't have been far.
I was here, as I am always here. But yeah, I think I saw my email popped, the newsletter of hey, here's a trailer for a thing we're doing, and I'm like, wait, what's happening? Then I recorded a TikTok. I soaked that half of my studio doing spit takes to multiple takes, a lot of outtakes. I discovered you can't do it on a green screen. It doesn't show up at all. It doesn't really show up in the video anyway, but we're committing to the bit. We're going to do a real spit take. But yes, instantly, was watching the trailer, it's nothing. It's just the recording of the Bell House. Is that where they have their New York live show? I mean, fantastic for them to have audio of we're in the best city in the world. Fantastic. And then to be and now we're coming back to Madison Square Garden.
I loved it. Rowan, where were you when you saw the news?
I was also right here, as I am always right here. I was working on another piece for Rascal. I was working through a transcript of an interview when I saw the email, and I reached out to Lynn and Chase and was like, should I write an article about this? And they went, I mean, we're not going to tell you not to. And then I wrote an article about it. It was really wild. Also, there was definitely a split-second moment where, obviously my fandom took over, where I was like, oh my god, I'm so excited for these people. They deserve all the success in the world. Also, as a New York comedian who's, come up through the same channels and pathways that they have, being oh, I've performed in the same basements that they have, and I know what the mindset is of, going from there to going to on stage at Madison Square Garden, where, comedians have made their careers for decades. That's incredible, and I'm very happy for them. And then also the reality settled in of oh, right, there are other implications of them doing this show. So a lot of thoughts, a lot of things to talk about.
It's when you see people who do similar work to you, or you've been in the same space that they're in, there's a moment of oh, wait, I could project myself in this a little bit and say oh, maybe things that I thought were impossible aren't impossible someday. It's a very cool moment for people in this community, and I feel that's a little bit widespread in the excitement of this. It's not just exciting to see this show happen, but the excitement for people who have committed themselves to doing as much ethical work as you can do, working in entertainment, getting to a big milestone moment is kind of a little, everyone gets a little clap. Woohoo, we love seeing people.
Come on,
we love seeing people make their moments happen. Everyone get a little clap.
Give me a clap. Yeah, it was fun. I did an interview with BDG a week or two ago, and we had talked about how did you start at Dropout, and his first thing for Dropout was the bell hooks. That's not right. Bell House. Bell Hooks is a very different person.
All about love.
Yeah, but his first thing with Dropout was the Bell House live show that he came that was the first thing he'd ever done with them. And I had that clip in my phone because I was it's a fun little story about him saying people were waiting in line to get their posters signed afterwards, and he was just also there, and they're I guess, do you want to also sign my poster? All these people who were just I mean, you were in the show, but I'm here for the cast. And now to think you went from that tiny, I mean not tiny, but small venue to the biggest venue you can go to.
Yeah.
It's crazy, right? And we're going to get into a little bit of just how big this venue is in a minute. So continue listening for a deep dive into the logistics of this, the ethical considerations around this. I wanted to back up. Oh, I should tell you where I was when I got the news. Because
that's important.
I was mid-DM to Jordon about recording today's episode, and I was like, and then I just got the banner on the top of, you know when you're on Instagram, you get the banners for new notifications, and it was like, from Dimension 20 channel, like, all capital letters, Dimension 20 live, and I was like, what? Oh, full pause, click, and I saw it and was like, back to Jordon, erase message, screenshot, did you see this? Just grabbed everything that we were going to record today. And it's all good stuff that we'll get to in the next episode, or unless there's more breaking news, then we'll get to it a few episodes from now. Either way, it was one of those, the universe really said, no. You're gonna just wipe all of your prep and do something fresh, which, if you're a producer, you know that's kind of the life. None of your plans ever go exactly as you think, but it always ends up in whatever is the thing you're meant to do. So, Dimension 20 Live, Gauntlet at the Garden. There's 3 pre-sales confirmed. Some people are saying there's 2. Some people are saying there's 1. There's 3 chances to get tickets, for those that may not know. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern each day. There's a different sale happening. Tomorrow's pre-sale code is Gauntlet. So if you're listening to this while you're in the Ticketmaster waiting room, I would not be surprised, because we're all going to get screwed in a Ticketmaster pre-sale. That's just the guarantee of how this game works. So maybe see y'all at the general sale on Friday, or the Live Nation pre-sale on Thursday. Either way, we'll talk more about Ticketmaster in a few minutes and how disastrous these pre-sales tend to go. But if you are lucky enough to get a ticket, you will be returning to the Unsleeping City in a special Unsleeping City episode with all the intrepid heroes, which is very exciting. And it will be recorded and posted to Dropout at a later date. So it will be accessible via Dropout for the world if you can't make it to New York. But 19,000 people will, which is bananas. Can you believe it? It's a lot of people.
That's so many people.
Yeah, I say like when I interviewed Sam, we talked about very briefly like Dropout Con and like the idea, and it was, he said when we sold the UK live shows for D20, we didn't realize like how much of an audience there was going to be and how quickly those shows sold. And he teased to me that like something was coming. It sounded like this fall of like a Dimension 20 live show. Nowhere in my wildest imaginations did I think it was going to be Madison Square Garden. Like, I thought, like, oh, cool, they're going to do something in L.A. at, like, maybe 10,000, but probably less, like, theater. It'll be super fun. I'll still try to get tickets and go to that. It'll be great. Not almost 20,000 people at, like, it's the venue, right? Like, it's the venue of venues. Like,
yeah, it's definitely not like the biggest capacity wise, but it's definitely the biggest like brand wise. Like, if you've played Madison Square Garden, you have made it. Like, yeah.
I really want, like, you know how Harry Styles got his jersey raised because he sold out so many nights, right? Like, you have to do multiple nights to get a jersey raised, but I just think it'd be so funny to see, like, Dimension 20 on a jersey in Madison Square Garden in perpetuity. Like, you have all these really iconic, like, singers and comedians and, like, big sporting events, and then just drop out, like, Dimension 20. Like, I get a kick out of that visual.
I'm waiting for the fish version of Dimension 20 where it's just like 7 nights of just like whatever game, man. We're just gonna jam.
I'll be there for all of them. Just like I'll buy the van and travel around. Like, yeah.
There is something to be said about like if they had booked multiple nights and the whole thing was like we're not going in with a plan. Like, we're not. Like, it's going to be just straight up improv for 7 nights at MSG. I'd be like, you know what? Slay $0 production value. I get it. Like, it's amazing.
And I would be unsurprised at how well that would do. Like, it would just do so well.
Yeah.
Let's go back to talking about what's happening with this UK-Ireland tour, though, because looking at the venues for what they are doing and what's coming up soon, these venues are between 3,000 and 3,500 seats. NADPOD, when they were at Carnegie Hall, 3,600 seats. The largest comparable is Critical Role's 12,500 seats at Wembley, which again is a UK-based event, which means you would assume the majority of people are traveling from Europe-centric or UK-centric to be there. This is by far, actually, we could do the math here if we were mathematicians, around 16,000 more seats available than any other large-scale North American-based actual play ticketed event. So, listen, not a mathematician, but I know that is a huge projection and jump to make for the North American market versus the global market. It's still 7,000 seats more than the previously largest sold event that it could be compared to.
But also, like, not just to be like, oh yeah, we can do this, but to convince Madison Square Garden that you can do it.
Yeah, this is the plot from Girls 5 Eva. Shout out. Watch the show on Netflix. It's so good. The entire third season revolves around them buying out Madison Square Garden.
Do you think that's where this came from, Jordon?
Yeah,
that Sam was watching Girls 5 Eva and was like, that is going to be the next year of work.
Would I be surprised? No.
No. Yeah, I think, I mean, obviously they have to be confident in, like, we've got this locked down. Based on the reactions I've seen, I think they're gonna be fine. I mean, it has to be the speed at which the UK and Ireland shows sold, especially because there were so many of them that they're looking at how many of these people are really, like, how many people are going to multiple shows versus this is probably what, I mean, they have what, 5 shows over there, 4 or 5 shows over there. So
8,
we're looking at 8.
Yeah,
that's so many shows. But I mean, we're probably looking at around like 19,000.
It's roughly
in
the
terms
same number.
Of like, total seats, and obviously there is, I mean, look, I'm sure there's a very large contingent of Dropout and Dimension 20 fans around the world, but for sure there's more in the United States. And
Absolutely.
People will travel to go to New York to see a show. But yeah, wild jump.
And that's where you also get into all the considerations around what if they were trying to plan some kind of theater or mid-sized tour for the 3,000 to 6,000 venue range, and you get into all of these, like, then you're paying for production travel, you're paying for trailers and trucks to move your sets, and like just so much logistical work. Plus, you add the fact that, going back to like the ethical dilemmas of booking shows like this, you now have cast members with dependents. We have cast members with families. Do they want to be on the road for extended lengths of time? Answer could be yes, which lots of people make that choice and bring their families on the road, which is fine, but you might also be in a position to say, like, it's not feasible, reasonable, or ethical to the people I'm serving to, like, book them a 2-month tour to fill the same amount of seats. So let's instead do one night and shoot big and hope people travel for it, which I also agree. I don't think they're going to have problems selling these tickets. It's just fascinating to me that they have done no mid-market testing. They just went straight from, no, Madison Square Garden is going to be the next North American date we book. Like, no worries, let's go for it.
It is interesting that they are in New York for this. Like, I've definitely noticed a significant increase in the people who know what Dimension 20 is in New York. When I first started reporting on it back a year ago, very difficult to try and explain to anyone what this was, but I find more and more that not only do people know what Dimension 20 is, they're engaging with the stuff about it. They know who the 3 of us are. I have been identified as someone who writes about this. I'm like, that's not why I got into journalism. I didn't get the journalism to be noticed. But that just shows a tier of how the social awareness is exponentially increasing, that anyone within or anyone outside of that circle, in the orbit, is gaining onto that visibility that they're just skyrocketing with.
That's so interesting to me, especially considering how LA-oriented Dimension 20's brand is, with the exception of Unsleeping City, which they took to New York, as we said earlier. It's interesting.
Yeah. So I'm just fascinated to see if that also translates, because most of the people that I'm talking to also don't have money. And so that's going to be the interesting factor of, will people who are interested in it, and I think the largest demographic of Dropout is people with a little bit of expendable income, but maybe not $90, $100, $120 to buy a ticket worth of expendable income. And it'll be interesting to see if that translates to buying in-person tickets. I have no doubt that it will, because people like to spend money for things that they enjoy, but who's to say?
Yeah.
Let's jump right into the ticketing conversation, because there's just so much to unpack with this. For those of you that only know me from the Dropout side of content I do on the internet, I've been covering the Ticketmaster. It used to be the Ticketmaster scandal, and now it's with an S on the end of it, because the story just never ends and always evolves on what the hell is happening over with Ticketmaster and the disastrous monopoly and standards that they've imposed on this horrible industry. An industry I love very much, from a place that could be so much better if people didn't ruin it like this. It's so fascinating to me seeing the price gouging and the platinum seating, and Madison Square Garden especially being one of the venues who falls victim to these ploys time and time and time again. Like, it is so hard to pay reasonable prices to see anything at Madison Square Garden, because you're paying for that specific venue's experience, so you're expecting to pay a little bit more than if you're going to, I don't know New York comparables, but I know from looking across market, because as a Canadian, I travel into the US to see shows regularly, and it's often a financial choice of, can I even afford to see it in New York City? Can I afford to see it at Madison, or am I going to Chicago? Am I going somewhere else to see the show because they're not going to charge a premium like the New York market will, like that specific venue will? And then you get into like resale tickets and demand for resale. Will people even be able to afford the standard pre-sale prices, let alone what like secondary market could go for? I see a wave of problems coming towards Dropout with this, and I'm curious, each of you, what your thoughts are on like how Dropout's continued efforts to provide accessibility into their content matches a moment like this.
Yeah, I think it's interesting for me, like, as someone who bought 2 tickets to the Manchester live show and then couldn't go, I had to resell them on, like, Ticketmaster UK or whatever it's called, and there was no option to be like, I want to charge this amount of money for my tickets. It was literally just like, you can sell your tickets, we're selling them for the price that you sold them, but that you bought them for. Like, that's it. Like, there is no, like if you're selling them through us, you can't, like, make a profit off of that. And I'm like, boy, there's some good laws in Europe that we could use over here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You get your money back. Someone else pays the price that you paid.
Yep.
The end. That's it. Jordon is not a scalper. Jordon is simply a ticket exchanger at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rowan, where do you come in on this? Such a big question, hey?
Yeah, as a New Yorker and someone who like really loves live theater, loves live performance, it is so inaccessible in so many ways. I like grew up going to Broadway shows all the time because they were at one point like decently priced, and now like the exponential rise of like how impossible it is to get to any show on Broadway, and then like off-Broadway shows, like the minimum ticket pricing is like $35, $40 now. It has just become, because the real estate in New York is obviously one thing, and then, like you were mentioning before, the price gouging, the ticket gouging, and then we get Ticketmaster and Live Nation, like, really kind of ruining everything else. Because we can go back to, like, the fact that they were talking about Taylor Swift in the United States Senate. Like, like, this is so clearly, like, a huge issue that is, like, kind of going unaddressed because, you know, I don't know, bread and circuses. Like, keep people distracted, do whatever they can. And I think that that's kind of an inescapable reality that is, like, systemic and not something necessarily that individual performers get to consider when wanting to perform on scales of this size, which is, like, an unfortunate...
My son
That's
agrees
exactly
with you.
how I feel.
Yeah.
So true. So true.
Preach, King. Tell your truth.
Your son has such a career waiting for him should he choose to join the Dropout Drop-In 25 seasons from now. We let him know. So good.
But yeah, that's my biggest issue. Just like, yeah, money, it costs so much to do anything now.
I think you make a really good segue, though, into, like, the choices that entertainers do have control and don't have control over, right? Like, if you want to book a venue that is 20,000 odd seats, then you only have so many venues to pick from in the first place. all of those venues, with the exclusion of very, very few in off-market cities, have that exclusivity contract to Ticketmaster. So even if you want to book a 20,000 seat venue, unless you're going to, I know there's one stadium that's in, if it's not Minnesota, it's Milwaukee or something, and someone's going to fact check me on that. I'll go back into my notes and put it in the comments which stadium it is that is a SeatGeek signed stadium and not a Ticketmaster signed stadium, but it's like one of 2 or 3 left in America that's like, if you don't want to go through Ticketmaster, there are literally less than 5 options to pick from, right? So if you want to sell out 20,000 seats, you're going to be using Live Nation Ticketmaster. Like, that, it's an inevitable piece of the puzzle. But there are choices that you can make still when you're booking something like this. And Rowan, you published a very eloquent piece that I was a big fan of earlier today about Madison Square Garden as a venue and as a choice. And I will not speak for you, but I will open the door if you want to share some of what you shared in that piece, with the caveat of pay to read the whole thing, because it's incredible and it's very well done.
Well, I'll start it off by saying it's a members-only article, so if you want to subscribe for free, you can go read it. You don't have to pay us to read it, because breaking news should be accessible and information should be free, but also, God, I need to pay my rent. So... so true. So true.
So true.
Exactly. And I've been saying yes. I'm so glad someone's saying it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Madison Square Garden is a really unique venue because it's underneath Madison Square Garden Entertainment. And Madison Square Garden Entertainment manages a bunch of various venues, including Radio City Music Hall in New York City. Like, these are the big, iconic venues that everyone knows about, that, like, oh, you're going to travel to New York to go see Fish at Madison Square Garden, or you're going to go see the Rockettes at Radio City Music Hall. Like, Joe Biden just did his, like, congressional, fundraising thing at Radio City Music Hall. But what happened a couple years ago in the news was a lawyer who had been litigating against Madison Square Garden and Radio City Music Hall and the entertainment group had been recognized by the facial recognition technology that they have at Radio City Music Hall and Madison Square Garden and all of their other properties, and was denied entry, despite the fact that she was, like, there with her children going to see the Rockettes with, like, her Girl Scout group, like, the most innocent opportunity you can, but they're like, no, actually, we don't like you, and our robots decided that we know who you are, and you can't go in. Like, there's nothing more dystopian than that. And so there's been litigation around it. There has been, I'm not quite sure, but I believe there have been some results. I wrote in the article about how there is, like, a 1941 law protecting critics from gaining access to certain venues, and you can't ban critics based on if they write a bad review of you or not, kind of access journalism at its oldest. But that idea of using this technology and preventing people from going into a public space, like, has a much bigger implication of, like, that facial recognition technology can then be connected to the NYPD or other law enforcement agencies, and how can those wider implications be used? And that's not what Dimension 20 is doing. Dimension 20 is not, like, co-signing that that's okay, but by performing at that venue, they're saying, we're willing to look over that to be able to perform at this venue. And that's, like, a really difficult ethical choice for, like, anyone who's trying to do this kind of work. It's really difficult and really messy, and I do think that there are probably going to be people who are not going to go to this event because of that. And again, like, on top of that, there are, like, COVID mitigations where there are 19,000, 20,000 people at this event. That could be a super spreader event, especially considering the fact that it's happening during the winter when, like, COVID rates and other diseases are spiking. And Madison Square Garden does not have, like, masking requirements, because this isn't directly why, but also any kind of masking requirement would prevent the facial recognition technology from working. And so you have all of these, like, behind-the-scenes things that they have no control over that, like I said in the article, sound like a plot point that they would use to describe an evil villain in Unsleeping City.
I think that's really one of the kickers here when you're talking about this specific booking, because it's not that these criticisms, I don't even think they're criticisms, they're just points to be considered when you're looking at the venue, are strictly and only applied to Dropout's ethical standard. Like, Olivia Rodrigo just sold out multiple nights at Madison Square Garden. Noah Khan just sold out multiple nights at Madison Square Garden. You're talking about, fan bases that are overwhelmingly underage, which, then goes into a whole line of thought around, like, do people know what they're buying into when they buy tickets when they're underage? And what are the ethical concerns of minors buying tickets to large-scale events like this? Like, there's a whole train of theory and safety that goes into looking at this entire lane of work. And I think that it's really important to flag, like, when you're looking at companies, and not just companies, but performers that have made a point to make ethical standards such a point of their storytelling and their art, that, like, that doesn't go away just because you reach a certain status level or your ability to sell out so many seats, or your ability, like, oh, well, we had to book a 20,000 person venue, so we had to play by their rules. Like, you don't escape that conversation by virtue of the scale of your success, the same way that other touring artists don't. And in fact, I think sometimes it's a reflection also of the audience that you draw, when you can be vocal and be like, hey, like, I specifically watch your content because you come out and criticize these monopolies and these standards and these practices that are unethical. And now, like, we want to know. And I'm also speaking in terms so broad, because it's been coming up time and time again since October. Like, we want to know your stance on these things. We want you to be vocal about the things happening in the world, because you happen in the past, so you don't get to be silent now. And in fact, if you are feeding into it like you do when you book a venue like this, like, where do you stand on these things that in the past you have spoken on? So I really commend you for putting the article out, because I think it's so important for fans to be like, yeah, like if you're going to buy a ticket to go, I'm probably going to try and buy a ticket to go, like, to be there, but it's not without the consideration and the ability to be like, why are we making the choices we're making? Like, did we scrap our ethics to the side when we booked this, or maybe were there things worked into the contract to avoid some of these things? Like, are you turning off facial recognition for the night to host this event? Like, let's be a little bit more visible. Drop out. Like, let's come to the table.
And I think that's also a really huge point in considering, like, when you can throw your weight around, when you are a big enough space to be able to throw your weight around to these venues. Like, Dropout, probably not big enough to throw their weight around at Madison Square Garden, being like, no, we want you to turn the facial recognition off. We want to enforce masking. Madison Square Garden's not going to say yes to that. But then it does force you to think about, like you were just saying, Noah Khan, Olivia Rodrigo, Taylor Swift. These people do have social capital to influence the decisions, because whole geopolitical conflicts start over whether Taylor Swift is going to have an exclusive event in one country versus another country. She can decide the rules and standards that the venue she is performing at have to adhere to. And when you gain that power, you have to recognize the responsibility that comes with that power, and making sure that we as fans and audience members are doing our part to hold the people that we like accountable, to use that power in a way that they've told us that they are going to, is important for us to be mindful and ethical consumers.
And I'll just say, I think Dropout has never done anything wrong, and I would like them to continue to talk to me.
Never once. Never once.
Never once. Never once. Oh my god. So well said, Jordan. That's so funny. I think it's so interesting, like, we were chatting a little bit about this theme before we started, but it's so interesting to come to a table like this with the two of you and be people that work in this, I don't know if you'd call it a liminal space, but that's the word that came to my head. This gray zone of, like, fandom and professional integrity and journalistic standards of ethics and PR standards of ethics, which, if I don't have my degree of it, I did start in PR. So, like, we all come to the table with these, like, we cover these things because we have investment and passion for them, and it does not excuse the ethical standard that we have to hold our work to in order to do the job of being a critic, of being a journalist, of interviewing in this space justice. And I that is something that, just in general, as someone who has to exist on the internet to do this job, I think about constantly. I think there's something to be said for don't mistake the ethical conversation and considerations and criticisms as non-excitement or non-passion for the moment and what's happening. In fact, everything can exist in the same conversation. Like, it is in this episode, because it's important to balance both and be mindful of the full 360, and not just be one comment on a post on a platform I won't name that's like, no, we must all exclusively be excited that Emily's going to scream into a mic at Madison Square Garden and I will cheer. Like, we can have more nuance than that.
I think,
but
like,
I am pretty excited about Emily screaming into a mic at Madison Square Garden.
I'm also so excited. God, I'm so excited. They all deserve this so much. They've worked so hard.
The worst thing about all of this is the number of people that I will personally know, both like that are working the event and are like fans and attending the event, is going to be this introvert's absolute nightmare of like the number of people who are going to want to talk to me. Like already people are like, we should get dinner, and I'm like, oh no, okay.
Jordan simply can't
so we
get
all
dinner
gotta
with
go to a
19.
bar.
Oh, please. I think that Sam should just reserve you a hospitality suite to hide in, Jordan.
Perfect.
Like, I think that
Honestly.
you should not be in the crowd. It would be like seeing, like, when Taylor Swift performs and Travis Kelce comes out and everyone screams, like, you would be the Travis Kelce of the Dimension 20 arena sellout. Like, that would be, you'd get swarmed. In fact, let's
You
hire
would.
you private security.
Yeah.
Is Iffy available? Let's get Iffy to come in and walk beside you, and the two of you can fend off the crowds together. It'll be great.
He's very tall and very strong.
Yeah.
And I think he could do it single-handedly, honestly.
Yeah.
I would trust Iffy with
Because
my
there would
life, but
actually
I've made
be
that very
no
clear on the
issue,
show.
but yes. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, go
One
ahead.
thing I do think is really interesting, though, because yes, all of the ethical implications implied. One thing that I have been thinking about also is what this means for like the medium of actual play on the larger industry market. Like, this is a point, it's an inflection point, because we've been seeing that now multiple proofs of concept have come out where actual plays can sell out large stadiums, they can have this buying power, they can produce studio shows, they can have, like, Entertainment One can make a show on the D&D Adventures channel, like, they can do these things, and it feels like it's having a lot more sustainability than it has in previous waves of actual play, like in 2015 or even in 2020. Like, we are now at this point where there is money, there is interest, and there is sustainability in a way that there was not before. And while that's really exciting and really cool, because, like, oh my god, I'm so excited for, like, these specific artists and this production and this medium to get more visibility, what does that also mean when capitalism comes into play? Like, what are the ethical implications on this very folk medium when the money starts coming in? What changes? How does this evolve? What are the pathways that are going to come forward? What bridges are going to be burned? It's such a big question mark in so many different areas, and that's why we just have to be, like, going back again, we have to be considerate, ethical consumers and think about the choices that we're making and the choices that we're supporting by giving them our money.
Speaking of money, though, and this is something that Sam posted, and it just delights me to no end, is that January 2020, IAC cuts all of the funding, College Humor closes. 5 years later, they are going to be at, presumably, a sold-out show at Madison Square Garden. That is
Slay.
remarkable.
So slay.
Like,
Incredible.
So slay.
yeah.
The power.
Yeah.
And I think that is proof that when you have an ethical guidance in your business, right?
And I mean, to what
Go
we
ahead.
talked about earlier of like this idea that do they know they can sell it out? Sam's whole the whole problem that IAC had was we want you to make so much money so much faster, and Sam's like, we can grow small and passionate, like
Yep.
for like that's our plan. So I don't think he would be taking this swing if he wasn't so sure about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, we can go back to two different references on this show. One would be the episode that we filmed 2 weeks ago, and I literally put it on Friday because I've been so busy, where we talked about using PAX East as a proof point for future Dropout, like, conference panel appearances, Dropout Con, etc., and how the 750, that's correct, right? It was 750
Yes.
seats for your panel. Felt
Whoops.
like, could we do it? And it wasn't near enough, right? So you're starting to get these proof points around what Dropout is capable of doing. And then to the conversation that the three of us had last time you joined us, Rowan, the idea of competition driving in this space. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, but again, someone can call me out in the comments if this isn't what I said. I think in that episode I was making the point of, like, the way that Dimension 20 20 is creatively and technically producing their show is going to drive competition to perhaps shift or change how they're technically and creatively producing their shows. Well, now Dimension 20 has just thrown arena-sized production on the table, as this is now entering what this medium is capable of doing. So, like, the bar for entry is now so much higher. Like, and in the scale of this was a folk medium to now we are selling out 20,000 seats, that is an incredibly fast progression to the conversation we had where we were like, it's interesting how Sam is pacing growth and how Dimension 20 paces growth. We have gone from, it's really cool that the dome is now interactive graphics who growl to 20,000 people chanting who growl at Brennan. Like, that's crazy.
I can only imagine what that will feel like. Like, you must feel like a god. Like, there's no way that doesn't fundamentally change your brain chemistry forever.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, based on the people I'm seeing sharing it, I feel like we're getting a full, like, Rick Perry extravaganza, maps, minis, like, battle set at Madison Square Garden. Like, the people that are like, I'll be there, are the folks that are, like, are like the mini makers are like, I'll be there. And it's like, well, if you're going to be there, it feels like you're working the event.
And so it's like, oh, are we going to get pyrotechnics? Yeah. Don't need to cut your segue off, Liz.
No, please, I want to talk about pyrotechnics. That's exactly it. So there's a critical piece of the contextual puzzle here, which is that WrestleMania is happening around the date of this show. So I really want to dive into talking about what we think the production of this could look like with the context of they can load out and load back in WrestleMania, no problem. I think it's more exciting to think about Dimension 20 happening in the WrestleMania style center of the arena format with everything being built around it.
This is going to be a
like
LARP,
a
actually.
staged
Yeah.
Yeah, we know Murph is a huge wrestling fan. I just, like, have The Undertaker come out and chokeslam Murph to finish the, like, episode perfection.
I want all of them coming out in, like, the robes and, like, belts and, like, high-fiving
like,
the audience. Yeah.
They all have their own entrance music, light shows, everything. Yeah, like, don't take the ring down. They play D&D in a wrestling ring.
It's killer.
I mean,
It's
as Jess
killer.
Ross said, professional wrestling is drag. It's just like we're it's already there. Like, it's fine.
And it is.
Yeah.
I think that's also the interesting thing, though, because we are getting this 20,000 number, and that is if it's a full in-the-round theater. Like, it could be 10,000, it could be cut off halfway. So, like, this is all speculation, as we love to do. But like that, like how they're going to work with the 3D of that space, what they're going to do with that, how they are going to incorporate the like intensive projections and sound system that they can utilize. I'm really interested also for the content wise of how they're going to incorporate like engaging with the audience specifically, because they're all improv comedians. They all know how to give me a suggestion. Like, that's where they come from. So I would be really shocked if they didn't use that live performance background and incorporate it into this massive scale, unless they're too overwhelmed by the scale of it and are like, actually, we have to block everyone out and just play the game here.
Look, there is no way I will personally start it. There is a chant of all pulp, no juice that doesn't have 20,000 people screaming that at one time.
So this is my nomination. Happening. Sam, I want you to mic up Jordon. Like, maybe can you do the pre-show and just walk on stage and like get the crowd warmed up? You and Iffy, again, my pitch is solid. Get you and Iffy on stage, warm the crowd up. Iffy can do one of his actual sets that he is touring with, and then you can come on and just get some crowd chants going every once in a while. It's perfect.
Yes, and actually, let's have it so that way Iffy and Brian Damon Gilbert are wrestling and Jordon is the referee.
Yes. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. I have money on Iffy on that one.
No, I don't think so.
Heave little faith. BDG. Listen, I stand with the BDG side of the internet. I'm like the Lorax for BDG on the show. Because Jordon constantly comes on here and is like, I don't understand the BDG side of the internet. And I'm like...
I didn't say I don't understand it. I was just surprised by it because I didn't know it existed.
No, but people love little freaks. People love weird little guys.
Yeah.
That's actually the slogan for this show. when they pitched it to Madison Square Garden. They said people love little freaks, they love little weird guys. We can sell 19,000 seats if you let us.
I just want to see Murph doing Harry Baby dance on the Jumbotron at Madison Square Garden. That's all I want.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Let's get into some more wild speculation, because I feel like we're at that point of the conversation. Let's give the wish list of what we would like to see. I have a very clear visual in my head of, like, the whole arena goes dark, and then there's, like, a solo spotlight with, like, the mic coming down, like WrestleMania style, and Brennan standing there. Like, he just appears on the screen, like, no introduction, like, are you ready for Dimension 20? And then that kicks things off. But I will pitch that as the intro to, if we're going in a WrestleMania style produced show, that is. But feel free to broaden the scope.
God, what is his Michael what? The guy that does the used to do the WrestleMania intros. I want to say Bolton, and I know that's not right.
No, we're gonna say Michael Bolton. We're gonna go with that.
But I would also love Michael Bolton to be there. It would be fantastic. Michael Buffer, thank you.
I think.
Yeah, that is it. Just fully hire Michael Buffer to come in and do the like a full
I might be wrong.
wrestling.
Are you ready to roll some dice?
Oh my god.
Are you ready to roll some dice? That's so good. Yeah, I will say one that I've seen, and I don't think it's going to happen, but then we at least have it on the record that we said it, that it's going to be the Unsleeping City kids playing in this adventure. I don't think there's any way they're going to try to introduce 6 new PCs in the span of a 2.5 hour show. It's going to be your favorites, but I'll put that on the record that we did say it.
Okay, I like that. I like that. Rowan?
Pyrotechnics. Obviously, of course, huge pyrotechnics.
For every Nat 20 pyrotechnics, come on.
Come on, incredible.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I would love for them to resurrect Stephen Sondheim and have him descend from the ceiling. I think that's gonna happen.
Kimmo, what are we singing when that happens? Like, are we doing Sunday in the Park with George, please? Like that?
No, I think it's actually the full cast of Merrily We Roll Along, which is currently on Broadway, and they all come through, and that's how we
Daniel
start.
Radcliffe rips his shirt off.
My real speculation, though, what I really think they're going to do is I think when they enter Nod, when they enter the Dream Realm, they are really going to go all out with, like, fish-style projections, sound effects to really create an immersive experience between the dream world and the waking world.
I love it. That's so cool.
I'll throw out one for you. Madison Square Garden is going to be the villain.
I hope so. That would be incredible.
What if Ticketmaster was the villain and they were just like burned that bridge immediately? But I mean, Ticketmaster wouldn't care. They're like, we everyone knows we're the villain already. You can't stop us.
Good. Yes. All press is good press.
Yeah.
When One Direction sold out Madison Square Garden, they released an exclusive t-shirt that said, like, One Direction Madison Square Garden. It was, like, 2013 or something, and it had, like, the Empire State Building on it. It was not a great t-shirt. Those things were, like whatever trendy baggies and style. Like, they were a status symbol of the 2010s. And I want Dimension 20 to make an exact replica. Like, keep One Direction's faces on it, but just change One Direction for the Unsleeping City. And sell them. Or, in fact, just send one to me if you cannot, like, legally sell them, but recreate that t-shirt, exclusive Madison Square Garden, like, tacky. I remember it was Heather Gray, and they were all, like, you know, the horrible women's cut t-shirts that are, like, so in your armpit, they're, like, no one wants to wear them. Yeah, like, please do a line of uncomfortable, badly New York marketed, exclusive merch, and I will buy all of it. Thank you so much. That's my request.
I do think the merch is gonna be crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I have no idea what it's gonna look like, but it's gonna be crazy.
I feel like they're gonna just, like, email Allie and be like, what do you think we should make? And they're gonna be like, here's the wildest thing ever. And they're gonna be like, we can do that.
I think we should sell drugs at Madison Square Garden for Pete. I think.
Yeah. I'm gonna record my podcast while we're there.
Exactly. They should, whatever dice Allie uses in the game should immediately go on auction for charity. Just saying, do a live auction inside the arena and be like, and if you want the Beardsley Blessed Dice from Madison Square Garden, starting at, for whatever charity they're supporting next year.
Have they
This
said how much money
D10
they've
is
raised?
from a NADPOD live show, so
Oh.
they chuck them into the crowd after they're done with their shows because they have so many dice.
Oh, that's gonna happen. They're just gonna
Yeah.
throw dice into the audience. That makes sense.
Totals I saw was somewhere around 215.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
That's really solid. Yeah, especially because it had been going down for a little bit with the past fundraisers, and now they're
Yeah.
like popping back. That's good. That's cool.
Figure out Faith, new champion, past ol' Stripey Pants with 12,000 something wild, like an obscene amount of money for Fig. Anyway, that's also
they
like,
can sell out Madison Square Garden for sure.
That
100%.
guy's gonna buy just a section to himself and just be like, I am lord of this section.
No, this is going to be so much fun. I'm so excited to see, like, I'm sure that there's all kinds of behind the scenes in the work. Like, I can't wait to hear how production goes leading to this. They have, how many months do they have? 8? They have 8 months until January, realistically, to pull this off, and they've probably been working on it for some time already. So, for those of you that think it's a long time away, no, it's not. No, it's not, folks. Especially where we don't know when they actually booked this venue out. I will tell you, if I was the one in the drive-in chair for something like this, I would have been asking for anywhere from 16 to 18 months runway at a reasonable pace to make something like this come to life, and maybe even longer considering, like, Rick Perry's team and how long they need to make minis happen with all their other production obligations.
I do think that's the thing. It's like, I have no doubt that this is going to be incredible. Like, I have no doubt that it's going to be like a mid-experience that people are going to be like, I want my money back. There's not a universe that happens in.
Yeah, that's gonna be.
Go ahead.
It's gonna be so much fun, and I can't wait to meet so many people, and that I only know from the internet. It's gonna be delightful.
And we'll meet in person.
We're gonna meet in person. The three of us.
What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? The whole world's gonna have some kind of eclipse of a moment. It's topical because we're recording this the day of the eclipse, just so people in the future are like, what the fuck is she talking about? It was topical to today. Okay, the eclipse just happened. No, it's going
That's
to
why
be
it's
huge.
this level of dark behind me. It's because we
happening
didn't
right
record
now.
when we normally did.
I will say, whether Sam wants it to happen or not, this will be Dropout Con. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
this is-
New York City is gonna go a little crazy for a couple days.
Can't
Whenever big events like this happen, like the Harry Styles concerts that happened at Madison Square Garden, all of Midtown was just boas and glitter. It was
We got to
crazy.
figure out what like, because we got to figure out the Dimension 20 boas, right? Like, what is the thing that we all wear?
Pete wears bolo ties, right?
That's it. That's
Bolo
it.
ties, and if you're a NADPOD fan, bucket hats. Emily has recently gotten a frog bucket hat. There's a whole discussion that Murph doesn't want her to have one. It's a bit, but like it's delightful. So
And I will.
bolo ties and bucket hats.
I
we
will
go.
throw into consideration, in honor of Kristen Appleby's, who is my hero, the hats that you can use as nacho trays. If you can get one of those in through the dress code policies, which I'm not sure if you can or not. So if you buy one for a lot of money and try and bring it in and they take it from you, you can't come back and blame me, but I would just love to see a couple of those floating around. I think that'd be good.
There's your merch opportunity.
There it is.
There it is.
Sell the nacho hats. Make it happen.
All right, if
I will
anyone
be
from
there.
Dropout's listening, make sure Liz gets 10% at least.
Honestly, I would take one appearance on Make Some Noise. Like, just keep the money. Let me in. Let me
That's
like
a
bang
great
on the door.
deal.
Let me
That's
in.
a great deal, everyone.
And I've not given that enough constraint, so they will have me holding some random object and immediately leaving. That I will not get
You
the
walk in with
appearance I
like
dream of,
one of the
but-
props, and then like you walk back out, no speaking lines.
Correct.
Perfect.
It's a solid pitch. It's a solid pitch. Oh my god. We will continue covering this over the rest of the months leading up to this fabulous event. We will do our jobs and never let Dropout have the easy way out of a conversation, but we wouldn't have it either other way, and neither should they. I'm excited to see this come to life. I hope that the ticket sales are not comparable to all of the other pre-sales I've seen over the past 2 years. Every single one of them. Every single one of them. I hope even Sunset Boulevard on Broadway, which was through SeatGeek and not Ticketmaster, was horrendous. I've yet to see one be successful, but if anyone can figure it out, hopefully it's Dropout.
We'll see. And if they don't, you'll see an article about it on rascal.news.
Excellent plug from Rowan. People can find you at
rascal.news. You can find me on the internet at Rowan Zeoli on too many platforms. At rascal_news on all the same platforms. Go support independent journalism.
Brian David Gilbert, everyone's favorite, I learned, interview dropped last Friday. Jesse
good.
Heron, model maker from Dimension 20, dropping this Friday. And lots
so
of
good.
very, very cool ones in the works.
Always something cooking on the Jordon Brown Patreon. Always worth the weekly visit. You will find me at Producer Liz, hopefully editing this tonight. So if you see me online for the next 4 hours, tell me to edit this because we cannot have a redo of the last episode. But you can find me at Producer Liz. I've got some exciting stuff coming up that I can't say publicly yet. But April's a good month for Liz. Hooray.
Love that.
And the sun didn't burn my eyeballs out of my socket during the eclipse, and I'll also take that as a win. And I hope that if you're watching this, you had a great eclipse and you have all the success in the pre-sale. And we will see you next week for another Dropout Drop-In, where maybe we'll have a show we plan or maybe we won't.
Who's to say?
Who's to say? We'll find out next week.